silver spoon. People think I'm limousine riding. When the van used to be my room, they ain't knowing that I had a
How you doing, guys? Welcome to ZukaTube, and today we're going to be reviewing Reacher Season 2 on Amazon Prime. It just came out December 15th, right at the end of the year, before the new year. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I'll give you my review, and then at the end we'll do a little bit of a spoiler section, right? So let me just read the summary for this one, right? Now this is based on the 11th book. I'm not familiar with all the books or anything like that. I haven't read them, but I did hear there's some key differences, and I'll talk a little bit about that. They're not really spoilers or anything, you know what I mean, unless you're planning on reading the books, in which do you read the books beforehand? Either way, whatever, right? But here's the summary. Over the course of 8 episodes now, right, we've seen Reacher, along with his former colleagues, work to track down, like, someone who's killing members of their former team, right? They travel to Atlantic City, New Jersey, where the group discovers even more of their team is dead, right? And then they end up working with an NYPD officer to tail them. Now, that's like the basic overview of these 8 episodes. And that's it, right? Because, you know, Reacher, he kind of is a hobo, they say. Like, he even says it himself in this, right? And he's wandering around, just going place to place, just using his military card to use it for, I guess, occasional snacks and if he needs new clothes and stuff. And right in the beginning, they show you that with the opening scene of him kind of thwarting a kidnapping and having to get a new jacket, right? And Reacher in this is back. He's like put on, I think, even more muscle, like 30, 40 pounds of muscle, this guy, Alan Ritchson, right? And when he's out and he's thwarting this kidnapping, right, he gets a message, a secret message in one of his receipts he notices. And he goes and meets up with Neely, right? And they find out that basically members of the former team have been getting killed. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. And they start to figure out that one of them, if not working with these criminals, is investigating criminals and onto some big case in which they all kind of are starting to get attacked now and getting killed for. And so Reacher's like, absolutely not. This is their squad. This was, you know, a squad that they had, the 110th, back, you know, when they were soldiers, right? And they all worked together. It was a private team that Reacher picked out himself, individual people that he thought would be fit for these jobs. And they give you a lot of flashbacks in this, and it's a really cool team, and seeing them all kind of operate together in these flashbacks and how they learn to bond, although there are a lot of very different people in this. It's really cool and enjoyable. All the characters are developed pretty well. Granted, there's a couple here and there that they don't go too deep into, but they do cover a lot of important aspects of character relationships for the people who are still around. You know, there's a crew of people. I'm not going to tell you who necessarily gets wiped out or anything in that kind of deal, but I'm going to go through and just kind of say that you do lose quite a few people in this. Now, they're not anybody key to anything because, you know, Reacher is your main guy, right? So I'm not spoiling anything by saying that. You know that plenty of people die in Reacher, right? The one thing I can say as far as cons go is there's like some CG and some more over-the-top action in this that I think is a little bit weak, you know, compared to what we got in the first season, with just more raw and hardcore practical effects and fighting and, you know, fight choreography that was pretty enjoyable, right? This one's a little bit different in the sense that things are a little bit more bigger on a larger scale, a little more over the top. You get to see a lot more people fighting. Like, you get to see one character, Neely, she's back. You get to see this girl Garcia fight, you know, a couple other characters. You get the NYPD officer they talk about in the summary, right? His name is Russo, and he, from what I heard, is not in the books or anything like that. And he's an enjoyable side character they got throughout, you know, that they're working with, who kind of doesn't really get along with them, isn't necessarily working with them in the beginning, but, you know, they kind of, he plays a big part throughout the story. I'm not really spoiling anything there because he's not a huge character. There's a lot of people, a lot of baddies that you got to deal with in this, right? So this is definitely a lot more grand, over the top, and bigger. and not necessarily badder, I would say, than the first season. The first season, I would say, is really, really excellent, top tier, one of my favorite, first seasons of any show I've seen recently, right? But this one, I would say overall, I would give this a solid 8 out of 10. It was fun, enjoyable. Reacher, great. Every season, is going to be just him strolling into a new place, and just trouble just follows him, right? And that's exactly what you get here, but even bigger and a little more personal than you got with the first season. Well, not necessarily, because obviously the first season, spoiler warning here, but it's his brother, right? So it's major, but this is also a lot of other people that he spent a lot more time in his life with later on. So he was a lot more recently connected with these people than, let's say, his brother that you got to talk about or find out about in the first season. So again, that's an 8 out of 10. Really, really solid season. I highly recommend this. Now let's get into some spoilers. Spoilers. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so you find out, right, that there's like this grand thing of finding these missiles that are going to be traded to this like terrorist guy, and he's like an assassin and stuff like that, and he's basically the middleman that's going to take these, learn to operate them, and then do this bigger job for whoever he works for, right? Reacher's guys, they get kind of taken hostage. He has to give himself up and fight, and all this stuff goes down. But either way, you know how it goes. Things get wild at the end, right? And you get the showdown, the final showdown in the helicopter that killed Reacher's other men, right? And Dixon and O'Donnell, they're strapped in the stretchers. Things are going to go down. And it's this kind of cheesy CGI fight that breaks out, but there's a lot of fun moments in it as well that are very Reacher-esque, right? And either way, at the end, they stop that, and then they got to get the terrorist guy that got the missiles. They thwart that whole situation, and they assassinate him in just glorious fashion. And the only thing I can say is my con is obviously the effects at the end of it. But it was very enjoyable, a really fun ride, and I'm super excited and looking forward to obviously the next season, because rather than necessarily go and get an even deeper connection, like you saw a little bit of a love interest situation with him and Dixon, he still is going out on his own. He got a bus ticket with some of the money he got at the end, and he's going on the next adventure. And I'm really excited. I want to go through and also read some of the books, because I know there's a lot of differences here, and it's a shame we lost Russo, but he had to go anyway. He wasn't a character from the books, apparently. And, so either way, whatever. 8 out of 10. Highly recommend. Reacher Season 2. ZukaTube out.
Born with a silver spoon. People think I'm limousine riding. When the van used to be my room, they ain't knowing that I had a hard time in. But I stage all of my cartoons. Now I'm looking like I'm styling and profiling. And they take it to the chest like woo. Just like woo. Like woo. Ha. People seem to think I'm